Johnversations podcast. This is episode 17, almost to 20. I cannot believe it. Wanted to say a very special thank you to my guest today, Mr. Matt Halliday, audio engineer, producer, musician, one of the only people in the world that I know who's into cartography, all around great and interesting person. I've known you for many, many years. Matt, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to do this.
Hey, no problem. I'm excited to be your first podcast, man. I appreciate that I get the honor to have you on first, and hopefully, if people are hearing this, you'll have many more to do after this. So, as we mentioned in the intro, I've actually talked about you on an episode before. I met you from doing the Robots in the Garden album, the Rising Tide album back in the day. So I've known you for a very, very long time, and you're somebody that I really, really respect. And I want to get into, the music and stuff like that first, but we were kind of talking a little bit before the show, but it just feels like I wouldn't be doing the show right if we didn't kind of take a minute to talk about what's been going on in the world over the last, week and a half and things like that. So I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. This is like a really weird time to be alive. I've seen this on Twitter a lot, and I think it's kind of hilarious that people are like, in the year 2015, if you got asked the question, where would you be in 5 years, you definitely would have gotten the answer wrong. And it's like, yeah, for sure. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around all of the things that are going on at one time. So yeah, I don't know. It's been something I've been thinking about a lot. It's really difficult to express into words what you're feeling, and also it's I don't even know if I'm the right person to be expressing an opinion on this at all. I have opinions, but it's just kind of you just want to sit back and let people that are better suited to address the issues that are going on right now, have their say and take it in and internalize it,
Yeah. And I agree with you on a couple different things. I mean, if you would have asked me in 2015, if I, what I thought I'd be doing, running from murder hornets and dodging people's coughs, would not be, level 7 of Jumanji would definitely not be the top of my list. And I agree with you as well as I've had a hard time even on social media, man. Cause I want to be an ally, you know what I'm saying? But I have a hard time just being here's a white dude weighing in, you know what I'm saying? So it's I don't I've just been looking for proactive ways to help. My wife and I, we've donated to Campaign Zero. We've got, I made a shirt that's up in our merch store. It doesn't have the Johnversations logo, anything like that. It's simply a demand change shirt, not a promotion thing. And then, if anybody buys that shirt, it's going to go to Campaign Zero as well. So I'm just, I'm really trying one, not to get mad when talking to people who don't agree with me. And then number two, I'm just trying to find ways to support, because I feel like that's the only thing that you can do right now. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's great. I was I already had a rule in my house that 2 hours before bed, I'm not allowed to look at social media because I can't sleep. I'm just scrolling through news, and then my brain gets all wired, and I've got first time in my life I've had actual anxiety and panic and stuff. And then the last week and a half happened, it just seems it's just crazy amplified. And so I mean, I just wanted to check in with you and make sure that your mental health was good, or if you're you're struggling, because I'll be honest with you, I'm having a hell of a hard time right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely struggling. It's hard to know exactly what you should be doing, because I feel a little bit helpless, because it's there are things you can do. You can donate to the right organizations, that are pro BLM, pro justice. Get out and march when you can, and honestly, the most important thing is to go vote for candidates that espouse the ideals. That's what you can do. I feel I want to do more, but it's I feel that's it. The position that you're in as an individual, it's just really difficult to. I think that's the most frustrating thing. Is it's the question of police brutality and racial justice and equality, the answer in my mind is it's just so simple. And I don't understand how other people can't, like, they just can't internalize the empathy that you need to arrive at the simple answer. And so all you have to do is empathize with other people. Like, just try to like imagine what it's like to be in their position in society right now and have to see the things and experience the things that they do on a regular basis, and just empathize with them, just even the slightest bit, and you'll come to the right answer to the question. So yeah, I also agree with you that, like, social media is really bad, because I even have family members that are like, I just see like all lives matter posts and like blue lives matter, and Bill Gates is putting out a vaccine so that they can microchip people, and it's just like, oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. Like, I just have to like disengage from that stuff, because it's like I don't know how to address it.
Yeah. It's funny that you like talk about like empathy, and like putting yourself in people's shoes. Cause I was talking to my wife, and this actually probably would have been right around the time that I first met you. It was either right after we did the Rising Tide record, or it was either like a little before we did the Robots record. But I got arrested in downtown Chicago. It's been expunged off my record, and it was a bullshit charge, but I got arrested downtown, and the cops were rough with me. I mean, the Chicago police, but like, they put me in the back of the cop car, and I got arrested outside of a bar, and they put me in the back of the cop car, had the back windows halfway down, and they were like hitting on these girls outside of the bar while I'm like handcuffed in the back of the car. And I had been drinking a little. I was younger, and I mean, Jesus must have been, if we're talking like Rising Tide record, this must have been like 13 years ago, 14. I mean,
yeah,
long time ago. But I was like, they're not interested. Like, like she's a 10, you're a 4, just like yelling, like just yelling all stuff. Cause I was mad.
That's ballsy.
well, first of all, so anybody's listening, because like I feel like I've got to kind of explain a little bit, or people are gonna be like, "Why am I listening to this criminal?" But I was standing outside of a bar talking to this dude, and a alarm starts going off in the building next door, and this guy's like, "I'm going in. I'm going to check out what's going on." And I was like, "Have fun, buddy." And he was like, "You're going with me," and I was like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "All right, well, be my lookout." I was like, "Whatever you say, sure, I'm your lookout." So he like opens a window and hops into like this industrial like warehouse building. And I turned to walk away, and I got tackled by like 3 cops. And they were basically like, "We heard you say that you were going to be this guy's lookout."
Oh, man.
So they got me for criminal accessory to trespassing. I was like, I was just trying to get out of a bad situation. So I was mad. Yeah, I was mad that like I was mad that I was like just trying to get out of the situation, had no intention. But because I said what I said, they were like, "Okay, we got you." So I was in the, I was being like, they threatened to tase me at one point because I was very angry. But I was talking to my wife today, and I was like, talking about my privilege, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I was a black dude in the back and saying anything like that, like I didn't have a scratch on me when I left. They, after they had me in the back of the car and put me in the paddy wagon and brought me down to like Cook County, like, nobody was rough with me or anything like that. But I was like, if I would have been, a black person in the back of that car yelling that stuff, like, who's to say that they wouldn't have just dragged me out and kicked the shit out of me, right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's that empathy part. And the other thing that really drives me crazy, I don't know if you agree with this, but like, I want bad cops to be fired and prosecuted. That's it. I'm not saying that.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that all cops are bad. You know what I mean? But if you're a cop and you see somebody, throw somebody down and put their knee in their neck, you need to go and be like, "Hey, this is what happened. Here's my body cam footage. This dude's got to go." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the cool thing is like seeing those 4 cops in Georgia who pulled those 2 kids out of the car, broke the kid's arm, and tased both of them. They were just driving home from getting food. Within 48 hours, they were fired and charged. So my whole thing is, I really hope that coming out of this, if there is evidence like that, like it becomes something that happens swiftly now. Not like that Chauvin guy who, had killed people before, you know what I mean? And this time he just happened to be caught on tape, you know, like that shit, you know, I don't know. It's infuriating and my blood boils and then I like feel sad. And it's like, have you ever seen Inside Out, the Disney movie?
Oh yeah. It's been a while. Yeah. But
this is like, that's like how I feel. I just got all those little, like, you're angry, you're happy, you're sad. Going on in my brain.
Yeah. No, there were a couple of things you said that I wanted to say something about. The first thing, oh crap, I just lost my train of thought. What was the last thing that you were just saying?
About the two kids in Georgia.
Yeah, no. So you were like, the people that were prosecuted, like when a bad cop does something and people are prosecuted. I think the big thing that I would really like to see changed is just like police department policy. I think it's really easy. Like I worked for a while doing, like you said, I was interested in cartography. So I do GIS as like a day job, which is geographic information systems. So it's kind of like database and mapping. And I spent a while working for the city of Toledo, and I actually did stuff with the city of Toledo Police Department. And I kind of knew their IT systems when they implemented their body cams. And when I found out that they can just turn them off whenever they want to. Like they don't have to keep them running. I mean, they're encouraged when they're on a police stop to have it running, but they can just flip it off. And it's like they record so much data throughout the day and they're storing it that no one's actually going through and looking at, you know, reviewing what the police officers are doing. I mean, I'm sure there are police departments around the country where they have a body cam and it has to be on all the time. And they don't get to decide whether it's on or off. Like, so there are policy issues that I think can be addressed, especially with like use of force. I think those are things that they can very easily implement policies where, you know, it's much easier to go after and fire and prosecute police officers. But then the other thing too is it's like, if anyone that's watching this hasn't seen it yet, Killer Mike, when protests were starting to break out in Atlanta, I don't know, if people don't know who Killer Mike is, he's like one of the duo for Run the Jewels. Yeah, he's awesome. Whenever I hear him speak, he's just like one of the most inspiring activists I've ever heard. He's super eloquent. But when he gave a statement on TV with T.I. as well, and also the mayor of Atlanta and the chief of police, and he was talking about, you know, people, you need to vote in your local elections because this is where you decide if you have a county district attorney that's an ass and you know, like holds the thin blue line and won't prosecute. They just like have like they're part of the brotherhood. You can vote them out. Like that's what the elections are for. So I think people need to get real serious about educating themselves on, you know, what local politicians they can vote for and actually vote for them. So if you're, you know, if you're getting indignant and you're getting on social media and you're upset, the next step is to go out and vote. Like you have to do it. It's frustrating that like I know people personally that are very indignant on social media and then don't vote because they're like, what's the point? I don't know. There's a huge point that needs to be addressed. But then, sorry, I know I'm talking.
No, you're good, man.
One more thing that's
what this whole thing is for. It makes me feel good to be able to like talk to somebody that is like, oh, like, I don't know. Don't worry about it. Say whatever you want.
This is actually very cathartic for me because that's like, sometimes I kind of hold it and I rant to my wife a lot, but you know, I'm stuck in my house. I'm quarantined. I'm just kind of like in my head all day.
My wife goes, you're yelling at me. I don't know if you realize that.
Yeah. I kind of feel like that. No. So the other thing too, when you were talking about white privilege is, I've talked to a few people that didn't actually know the details behind the George Floyd incident. So everyone knows that, is it Derek Chauvin? Is that what the cop's name is?
Yeah, I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name. I don't know if it's like Chauvin or Chauvin. It's spelled really weird.
Yeah, well, whatever it is. So everyone knows that, you know, he was just kneeling on the guy's neck for 8.5 minutes or whatever it was. And very clearly that was murder. Like there's no question about it. I've seen the video. I'm upset that I've seen the video, but I'm also glad at the same time. It's very uncomfortable to watch. But when you dig into the details, the reason he was stopped in the first place was that he was in a store. He paid for something with a $10 bill. There are laws in certain areas. I don't know if it's a federal law or if it's a state law, but a lot of establishments have a pen that they use on currency to see whether it's counterfeit or not. I mean, it's a perfectly fine law. So they use the marker on the bill if it doesn't show up. or if it makes a mark on it, it's counterfeit.
Yeah, like turns the wrong color or whatever. Yeah.
They're required to call the authorities and say, hey, I just received a counterfeit bill. It was a $10 bill, okay? And that was the initial reason that they stopped this guy. And just I like the thing that I always want people to think about, especially as for a white male like me or any white person at all, just imagine what it would be like if you went into a party store or whatever and you had a $10 bill in your pocket and you paid for some snacks and a soda or whatever. And then you walked out and the cops approached you and they're like, hey, did you just pay for some money? Imagine what that police stop would be like. I know 100% in my case that the cops would come up to me. I'll be like, oh my God, officer, I had no idea. I had that $10 bill in my pocket. I got it like as change from somewhere. They probably be like, all right, well, we're going to take your information down and go on your way. You know, they wouldn't put me in cuffs, put me onto the ground, like say that I'm resisting, put their knee on my neck. Like that just would not happen in my case. And like for people to not understand that, I mean, it's such a little thing. And the overreaction that the police have, I think there's no question that it has to do with race in that instance and socioeconomic status. Like that's clearly what that was. Like they were treating him like that because they knew they could. They have the power and the authority over Black people and people of color in this country. And there's just no question in my mind. That's a very simple thing to me. So,
well, and it seems like in that case, you know, and I'm also torn, you know, I'm not sure if I'm supposed, that's another thing is like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say people of color or if I'm supposed to say Black people. Cause you know, like Ellen put out a tweet saying like, I support people of color. And they were like, no, we're talking about like Black folks, you know? Right. So it's like, that's one of the things that kind of gives me anxiety is like, I want to do it the right way. Like I want to support you the right way. And I'm trying, you know, like, it's that's the thing that absolutely drives me insane is that, you know, it's that whole, like, well, you didn't see what happened before the camera started rolling. Yeah. Well, it's like, listen, man, I don't like, I really, especially in the case of George Floyd, like, I was like, I don't care what happened. That guy was on his stomach, handcuffed. There was 4 cops standing around him. Like that knee did not need to be in his neck for, you know, it didn't need to be in his neck at all. You know, right. I do like Andrew Yang. I think Andrew Yang said something that he thinks that all police officers should learn jujitsu, which, you know, right. Look at me. I'm a very strapping man. I'm built. I'm like if the Pillsbury Doughboy hit puberty and like got married, but like I like that idea of being like, hey, how can I restrain you like without hurting you? Because that's the thing. Like if that were you or me in that video, like Matt, if you push me down and for 8 minutes you put your knee in my neck and I ended up dying, it wouldn't be like, okay, well we're gonna fire you from your job and then, you know, we'll look into it and then we'll come and, you know, we'll decide if we're going to press charges. Like you just murdered me. It's on camera. Doesn't matter what happened before that, you know? Yeah. So that's the other thing too, is that, you know, people are talking about how the protests, you know, and I get torn on like the rioting and the looting because you see so much about like white supremacist groups. Like I know here in Tennessee, like they're like recruiting on Craigslist and be like, hey, we'll pay you. We've got lawyers. We want you to go down there, throw a brick, start, you know, breaking stuff, like, you know, trying to turn it into a race war. You know what I mean? But yeah, people are saying like, well, you know, it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. But I also feel like none of these cops would have been charged if the protests and the riots like didn't happen. I feel like. Right. Yeah. It was a good possibility. You know, because how many do you see that like either don't get charged at all or they do get charged and they get acquitted? You know what I mean? Like out of 10, I can think of maybe, you know, one instance where a cop did any jail time. And I feel bad saying this shit too, because I know police officers. I know several police officers and I'm like, they're good. Like they're good dudes. But at the same time, like if you run into that bad cop, like, are you going to say something? You know what I mean? Or are you going to be like, it's cool. Like, you know, we're buddies, you know? So I don't know, man. It's just, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you feel this way, but it hit me very surreal the other day. I was scrolling, you know, I think it was, you know, right after I saw the George Floyd video and I was like, I can't see another one of these videos, man. Like like I've seen, like 10 black folks get murdered, like just like holding it in your phone. Like,
Right.
you remember like the Faces of Death video that like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it used to be the big thing was like car accidents, and you know what I mean? And it's like, it feels like that's like the only thing that you see on your phone anymore. It's like somebody took that, was like, I'm just going to live stream it to you, like, all the time. And it just gets like so heavy, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I'm torn with that too, because I think it's important that situations like that, like it's not gratuitous. I mean, it is gratuitous, but it's not gratuitous in the same way.
Right.
It's not.
You're not trying to profit off it. It's like, I'm trying to show you what's happening.
Yeah, it's important to see it like that. Mm-hmm. So every time I see something, and it's right in my face. Like, it's almost unavoidable, because I live my life in the modern world. I have a job that I'm on a computer all day. Like, I have social media accounts. Like, I see that stuff. But yeah, it's important to me. I think people need to see it, because I think if you don't, like, it's not okay to bury your head in the sand just because you don't want to feel uncomfortable. I mean, and it's kind of all the time now, because these situations pop up. I mean, like Sandra Bland and Tamir Rice, mm-hmm. and like all of the other situations that have happened. Yeah, it's tough to watch, but important to me.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with someone, and they were like, you don't think just as many white people are killed by the police? And I said, well, not like in their bed sleeping or sitting on their couch watching TV. Like it's hard for me to, and this is a person like I love and I respect, but it's also hard for me to just be like I don't understand. I don't understand why you can't see the difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's a very different. You're presumed guilty, and then you got to work to be like, no, I didn't do anything. You know what I mean? It. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's one of those. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man.
Yeah, no. I was gonna say, I think that's like that's where the context is important. Like, I think people are forgetting about that, because I see that a lot too on social media, where people are just kind of throwing out statistics like, look, I have these FBI statistics where as many or more white people are killed than black people every year by police, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, if you have the context of 400 years of slavery and oppression and Jim Crow and all of the things that have happened, and then you have the isolation of minority communities, and then you have the over-policing of minority communities, because that the rationale is, well, that's where all the crime is, so that's where we're going to send all the police officers. Mm-hmm. And then I mean, it's just a fact that you have white supremacists that are police officers. Like, that's the thing that is real. Like, people that are openly white supremacist. And there have been instances where I think there was one guy that got fired because someone found his KKK application. I just saw a story about that the other day. But the communities are being over-policed. And they're just downtrodden on constantly. Like, there's no room for them to be able to move out of that situation. So they're boxed in, and then I don't know. I don't know what you do in that situation from their perspective. So it's I like the fact that the communities are over policed like that, and I don't know, but kind of lost my train of thought on that.
No, well, and I think the other thing too is that, like, not only are they over policed, but it's a like policing for profit. You know, the Supreme Court came out and said, like, hey, the police have no actual duty to keep you safe. You know what I mean? Like, it's and also, I mean, I don't know, you're talking about like the openness in some areas of like just blatantly racist cops. Have you watched the Innocence Files on Netflix at all?
Oh yeah, I've watched parts of it. I think I watched the whole first series like that, because there were 2 stories that they were showing in that, right?
So there was the Innocence Files is all about like the Innocence Project, and they go back with like DNA evidence and try to get people acquitted and things like that. So the first 2 episodes are about the same trial, but there's an episode a little bit later on in the series, and it's about a drive-by shooting, and it happened in LA, and a big group of cops in LA were in a group called the Vikings, and it was essentially like we're white supremacist cops, and they're like, it doesn't matter what happens, get a black person, get a Mexican person, get a person of color, prosecute them, close the case, get them off the street. You know what I mean? And so it's like, and they're like a very open group. They all have matching tattoos of it. They use like the Minnesota Vikings, like the old Viking football logo. So they all had it like on their calf or whatever. But they're, I mean, just very openly like, hey, we're white power cops, and then you think about policing for profit. You know what I mean? It's like think about like stop and frisk in New York, right? Like white folks weren't getting stopped and frisked. It was, I can just stop you and then either write you a ticket for something or I can arrest you for something. And then I've got revenue, like I'm showing my ticket numbers. I can cite you with this. It's just, it's about, I think that part of me feels like the only way to get it back to where the police force is there to protect you is to do some serious damage to their funding, to be like, you don't need a tank. You know what I mean? Yeah. You need to be in the neighborhoods. I understand why, a lot of people say that they think cops should live in the neighborhood that they patrol, which I think in some ways is valid. But then I also think that, if somebody has a problem with that officer and then they know where they live, they know where his family lives, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if, I could see why somebody wouldn't want to do that. But I think like cops should be walking beats. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, get out of your car, walk, talk to the kids, I feel like that's the kind of policing that we need. And like, where a black kid can be like, something happened to me, I know I can run to a cop because they're here to protect me instead of, target me. You know what I mean? It's just, I think that was the craziest sign that I saw held was that the little kid had the sign that said, when do I go from like cute to thug? He's like 6, 7 years old, so it's just like, I don't know. And I try not to talk about him very much on here, but the president is Trump is just, I feel like he's got like a 4,000 foot fan and he's just like, these flames hot enough for you, son of a bitch. Oh, can you feel that heat yet? California? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I just wanted to check. Like, I just feel like right now, like at least like good, decent people are having a hard time and want to know how to be supportive. And I think, like I said, I think you're right. I mean, I don't even know if this is the right context. We're two white guys just being like, how can we do better? Yeah. I just want to help. Yeah. Like, but my wife said something. She's like, it is important that people have these conversations. I think, I don't know. It's just crazy. And I want to like, it's like, I was like, man, do you remember like when murder hornets were the new thing? Now, so you're a cartographer. Have you heard anything about the volcano? I think it's in like Yellowstone National Park.
Oh yeah, the caldera. I've actually know a lot about that.
So
is there's like seismic activity like going on?
Yeah. So I saw an article today, and I'll be honest with you, man, it made me too upset to even like want to open it and read it. And I was just like, oh shit, there's a super volcano that they're like could explode. It's like, oh God. And I mean, I know it's always been there, but
yeah, this is a kind of a violent shift of topics, but it's it erupts like every 600,000 years. And we're like at that point, it's been like around 600,000 years since the last time it erupted. And it's like a human extinction event if it actually goes off.
Like full steam?
Yeah, totally. And the other thing too that really worries me too, because my wife and I, we've always like, we have like a 5 to 10 year plan that we kind of want to move out to the West Coast. Like we've spent a lot of time out in like Oregon and Washington State. It's just beautiful out there. We like, hiking and stuff like that. But there's a fault that goes along the western seaboard where if it could rupture at any single time, and like 5 miles inland would just go into the sea.
Dude, I watched a video today. I'll have to send it to you. It was in Norway that they had. Did you see that?
I saw that where the houses are just like swirling around in the water.
Yeah. Well, they had a like a landslide or something, and these people built their house. I mean, like 100 feet off the water's edge, and it just separated. And you see this big piece of land just becomes like an island, and then just floats off, and then just starts sinking. And it's like,
yep,
that's the craziest. It's the craziest shit I've ever seen. It's only 40 seconds long. I watched it like 8 times. I was like,
yeah.
How does this happen? California. It's California, California.
Yeah.
That's the one thing living in Tennessee. I'm like, well, at least we won't sink into the ocean. That's where my level of like optimism is right now. Is like, well, we're landlocked. We can't suffer a terrible drowning.
Yeah. My day job is in environmental conservation. That's the industry that I work in. So I think about issues like that all the time, and it's a big burden to take on. At least with environmental catastrophe, there are some things we can do something about, like climate change and stuff like that are human caused things. Other things like the Yellowstone volcano exploding, or like 5 miles of land going into the Pacific Ocean, you can't do anything about that. But at least with some of the other issues like coronavirus and racial injustice in the United States, there is something that you can actually do about it, which is at least a little bit comforting, you know?
Well, and that's the thing that makes me feel like you should try to do something about it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, at any point, you know, because we're in like within a couple hundred years. So you definitely know more than me, but like the projection, are we like a couple hundred years, or like within a couple hundred year time frame as far as that volcano? I mean, it's definitely not like we're thousands of years away from it, right? Because like we're
nobody knows. It literally could erupt next week or 10,000 years from now. Like that's like when you're talking about time scales of 600,000 year cycles, it's just like there's no way to know.
Right.
It's just gonna happen, and you're not gonna know, and you're going to be incinerated. So at least take comfort in the fact that
hey, at least you go out warm. You know what I mean?
You go out warm.
I'd rather go out warm than like the sun get blocked out and I freeze to death. Just warm and quick. I don't know. I feel like this year, if that happened this year, there'd be a lot of people that were just belly flopping. Like, oh, there's that lava. I'm out of here. Just like, I'm punching the ticket. I'm done. So I don't know, man. It's crazy. And then the other thing, and I'm sorry to like keep talking about this, like I definitely want to get to music and stuff like that, but it's especially with this coming off the tail end of the protesters in Michigan with the AR-15s, and it got me thinking about like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl and they just tore that city apart, and the cops they just stood around and watched. They didn't do nothing. You know what I mean? They're just like, let them get it out of their system. We won the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to see that, and then see some of I will say I was really, really proud of the like I'm sure you saw the video of the Genesee County like police chief who's like, hey, I took off my helmet. I laid my baton down. Like I'm here we love you guys. We're here to march with you. And the Tennessee National Guard did the same thing. They all laid down all their shields in front of protesters. So it's like, it's good to see that. But then you see like these fucking assholes in New York who like protesters surround the car. Nobody behind them can easily go in reverse. And they're like, hit the gas, Billy Ray. Let's just go like, as fast as we can. So it's like, I just kind of think it speaks to like, if I'm white, I can throw an AR-15 over my chest and scream an inch away from a cop. Or there's that video of the guy I think it was in Minnesota, who they're trying to detain him, and these two cops are trying to detain him, and he's literally reaching for his gun on his holster. And they're like, come on, buddy, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, if that was, Trayvon, they'd beat the shit out of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I even saw a video recently of there was a white guy that would like had a butcher's knife or like a crazy blade, and he was like literally running at cops, swinging at them, and they're like, the guy like has his gun down. He doesn't even have his gun. The police officer didn't even have his gun pointed at the guy for a lot of the time. He's just kind of backing off, like, hey man, put the knife down. And maybe that's an instance of a good cop, and that's the way that it should be. But it's just like, it just seems like it feels like you see lots of instances of Black people just not getting the benefit of the doubt, even just like a centimeter, by cops that stop them, or they find any reason to pull a Black person in a car over, but then you see a lot of videos of the corollary where white people are getting all of the benefit of the doubt and every single chance to not get arrested. And it's just hard to say, like, yeah, I see these things on social media and I'm taking in this information, but I don't know that there is a real issue that it needs to be addressed. And I really hope that people that were on the other side, that had kind of like the gut reaction, like when they would see Black Lives Matter, to say all lives matter, that I hope that it's getting to a point where they can at least understand that gut reaction is their own insecurity with themselves. Because it's like when you hear the phrase Black Lives Matter, I know there's a really good Michael Che comedy bit on that where it's like, we matter. That's it. That's all we're trying to say is Black Lives Matter. And you can't even grant us that. It's like the most, we're at the bottom. They're not even, there's no negotiation there. Like you can't even just say Black Lives Matter. Like you have to react by saying all lives matter. You have to bring yourself into that conversation. Of course. Like it's so frustrating. It's just grant that Black Lives Matter. That's all we want. That's the starting point.
And my whole thing is, if there is a giant movement that is saying, "Hey, Black Lives Matter," and then you're saying, "Well, all lives matter," and blue light, like no one's ever argued that. No one's ever argued against that point. Where, again, I think it comes down to the context and the systemic foundation that is built, for Black people and people of color is that, it's like, I don't even know, man. It just makes my head like want to explode. It's like you've been treated less than, you know what I mean? And like, it goes back to, I mean, I watched a video from, it must have been like 1975. Somebody posted it, and it was this, or maybe even the 60s, but it was, these Black girls on bicycles, and they're just, trying to ride up to the store, and there was a news crew filming something, and all these little white kids started surrounding her and calling them the N-word and like, get out of our neighborhood and stuff like that. It's like it's like that, like, and that was like when around like trying to end segregation, you know what I mean? It's been an uphill battle, like I'll never know what it's like for me to be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to walk into the Gap and have somebody follow me around the entire time I'm in there. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I think that, that lady in the park really like sums it up. That I think her name's Amy Cooper, but she was the one that's I'm going to call the cops and tell them a Black man is threatening my, just weaponizing it. You know what I mean? I really think that kind of sums up everything that's happening right now, is that like, I can just call and say there's a Black man threatening my life, and you should automatically be afraid that cop's going to come and end your life. You know what I mean? It's just,
it's like the subtext is now explicit, It's like she knew exactly what the expectation was. And she also knew what the other guy, I can't remember, his name is Cooper too, right?
Yeah, I think his first name is Cooper and her last name is Cooper, maybe.
Okay, yeah. It's a little confusing with the names on that one. But it's like, she knew what the expectation was from his perspective. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that's so crazy. And I hopefully people have seen the Trevor Noah video where he's kind of like pontificating on this. It's a really good video.
It's the best like 19 minutes I've seen.
Yeah, it's so explicit, and everybody knows it. But that's the first time that it's been so explicit.
Let me ask you this: do you think we'd be seeing what we're seeing right now if it wasn't for coronavirus? Because that's something that I've been thinking about. Like, kind of like, it's a like coronavirus hit, and it kind of seemed like for a minute that it was like, we all have to look out for each other, stay at home, protect each other, stay at home. We're all in this together. And then as soon as things kind of loosen up a little bit, it's like, oh, remember all that shit about how we're all in this together and everything, and then as soon as it's over, boom, here's that lady calling the cops in the park. Boom, here's the video of George Floyd. And I think it just I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I was just kind of thinking like, it really seems like coronavirus, like if you think about a stick of dynamite, like cut the wick in half. And it was like, when this goes off, like it's going to explode. And then you got people who are just like, I've been home forever and I'm so angry. And so like, I'm out, you know?
Yeah. I think that's probably part of it. I would hope that, you know, given no coronavirus and the same circumstances with George Floyd, I would hope that the reaction would be the same, just because that was so egregious. I don't, but that it is. I mean, that is a component of it. I mean, you can't take that out of the equation, because you have so many people that are unemployed.
Well, it made me think about Eric Garner, though,
in the same way. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because when you look at the Eric Garner video, like it's not all that different. You know what I mean? Like he was, you know, resistant, but that like he should have never been in that chokehold. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I don't know. It kind of felt like it was just like, I don't know, like gasoline on the fire, like where it was just like, because then thinking about it too, it's like when you look at like the number of black folks, you know, the Corona was just rolling through in like devastating numbers, and it's like, yeah, because I don't have access to healthcare because this system has fucked me over, and I don't have, you know. Is there? I mean, I haven't been to downtown Detroit in like the last couple of years, but is there even a grocery store down there now? Like there. I mean,
certain areas, no. Yeah, there are certain areas of the Detroit city and like Highland Park. It's like they call it a food desert, because it's like you have like a CVS where you can buy Twinkies and cereal and stuff,
and Bugles and Funyuns, but I can't get, you know.
You can't have a nutritious diet off of some of those areas. But yeah, no, it's been pretty crazy being in Metro Detroit, like while this is going on, just to see how like severely it's impacted Black and minority communities, because it's just like the circumstances, like they live in impoverished communities. They have high rates of hypertension and diabetes because they live in food deserts, and they can't get a nutritious diet. And like the school programs aren't meeting the needs of children, and they don't have healthcare. And then they also, they have menial jobs where they can't afford a car and then they have to take a bus. So they're in public transportation. They're in close quarters with people all the time. And it's so like the infection rates are higher, and it's, you know, all of those things compound, and then it has a greater impact on those communities. It's just, it sucks. Like
the thing that, and I agree with you 100%. And the thing that infuriates me is that if you drive 15 minutes down the road, it's a completely different story. You know what I mean? Like it's night and day difference. There's, you know, Walmart, or, you know, which by the way, fuck Walmart. I'll say that nice and loud. You
don't want them to be a sponsor of your podcast.
No. Lick my balls.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, I will say I'm glad that you're on, because this is like I think this is the most vulgar I've gotten it. Or like that franchisee from Wendy's that like owns the Wendy's and Taco Bell donated like $440,000. Fuck him too. Like I'm just, I don't know, man. I'm getting to the point where I think I used to be like, everybody is entitled to like their political leanings, and I don't understand Trump, but you know, if you support Trump, then you know it's probably not because you're a racist, but it's probably because I think that's a big thing too, is that it's like it's hard. I think it's hard for a lot of people to look at people who may like Trump and say, oh, and not say like, oh, this person's a racist. If you know what I mean? If like you support him, where I think when he first rolled out, there were some people who were like, maybe he's going to have a better fiscal policy. You know what I mean? And I know that there are people who have been like, my 401k looks great before all this happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now it's to the point where I'm just like, especially, you know, with his Twitter and calling people thugs and Mason people in that church, that my grandmother's Episcopalian, and it was awesome to see that I think it was the deacon or whoever it was, but they came out and they were like, yeah, what he did was ridiculous. You know, he just pepperballed all these people and threw some flashbangs and cleared them all out, and then just walked into the church, walked out, took his picture. You know what I mean? It's like, and the crazy thing to me is that there are Christians out there who are like, yep, it's a godly president, man. Hand to God, man. He's out there holding that Bible. He's like, I'd like to hear him pronounce Deuteronomy. I would like to hear.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, man. So I think I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, if you support that shit, I'm just like, fuck you. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I told my wife,
really hard to.
I was like, no more. I was like, no more 4 for 4. We're not doing it. I'm not doing that shit at all. I'm sorry. What were you saying though?
Oh no, I was going to say, yeah, like I kind of have the same reaction that you don't just want to kind of fling around racism, but I don't know. It's really hard to, people that support the type of rhetoric and policies that are happening right now. It's like, yeah, you may not be overtly racist, but you're certainly racist adjacent.
Yeah. You're kitty corner.
Yeah,
like your kids may play
right
together.
There. You're definitely closer to racist than not racist.
Yeah, you share a zip code.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. It's like, do you call that racist? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you're racist adjacent, I don't know. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not saying anything about it, like I know. So like before all this happened, my wife and I were in the airport and we were flying back to Michigan and we were standing waiting and we were just kind of talking to each other, not paying attention. And there was a black lady just on her cell phone and she was kind of like going back and forth. And they said next, and I didn't realize that she was in line. So like we stepped up and she was like, "Oh, okay, I guess it's your turn." And I like my white guilt hit me like immediately. I turned around, I was like, "I am so sorry. Like I did not know that you were in line. Please go in front of us. I would not try to like cut or take your space." Like I wanted to be like, "I know that you worked hard for this space. You were here like much earlier than me. Please, like And she was like, "Just go. It's cool." But like I had that just like immediate guilt or fear that maybe she thought I was just going because I was entitled to it and like wasn't, you know what I mean? And like in some degrees, I think that's a good thing to have because it shows that like, you're being empathetic of other people but you also don't want to be like feeling guilty for, everything in your life. It's just such a weird thing to be like, again, like how am I doing this right? Like I want to support you. I want to help you, but I also don't want to like do it in a way that's counterproductive. And then like, my wife is talking like somebody at her work, like that Ellen tweet, where they were like, "No, it's Black Lives Matter, not people of color." Somebody at my wife's work were like, "I prefer to be called a person of color." So it's like depending on who you're talking to, or it's just it like I want to say minutia, but I don't know if that's the right word. I'm a smart man, Matt, but it's just it's just like I don't know, man. That's why I said, I'm going to make this shirt. I'm not going to have any advertising on it. I just want to put something out there that somebody could buy. It's a company that you order the shirt, they print it and send it. And then anything other than the printing cost is just going, right to Campaign Zero. Cause I'm just like, I don't know what else to do now except just be like, here, take money. Like how can take money, if we can donate enough money to get some police precincts to be like, hey, guess what, guys, you can't put people in chokeholds anymore. Like that's, I want to help with that. But
no, I think that's commendable. I think that's the right thing to do. I don't think feeling perpetually guilty is the right state. Cause I feel like psychologically you just get into this like, state of paralysis where you're like, I don't know what to do. I mean, you should like recognize what the situation is, recognize what your position is in it, and then just go do the things that you can do. Like, I feel like that's where I'm at least. And,
it just makes me wonder how Catholics get up every morning. Just all that guilt. Yeah. I'm just like, how do you do it, man? I don't know.
Yeah.
That was one time in an airport and I'm still like, to this day, I'm like, I hope that lady doesn't hate me somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So, because I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit, like, because like with everything else that's going on, it would be the entire time that we're sitting here talking, we could easily talk about that and it could take up everything. But I mean, there is, number one, there's good things going on. There's still, things to celebrate. There's, it's still time to have good, fun conversation. I think especially right now, just like being able to spend time with people you enjoy. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is that, I can't tell you how many times like we finish. like how many times did we book a recording session with you and then like the time ended and we just like sat there and talked for.
Yeah, you know what? That actually has not happened that often. It was particularly with you guys. That because I've been in a lot of recording sessions where we had really long days, and I'm always just like at the end of the day, all right, get out of here, guys. I'm gonna like make some ramen noodles and watch cartoons.
I think it was just because we were I think it's because we were the hot and ready guys. We're always like, dude, you want to get pizzas? Let's get some pizzas, baby.
Yeah, hot and ready.
Yeah, but I remember that, and it's I want to say maybe it's me because that happened in the Rising Tide. It happened in Robot, so I'm the common link between the two of those. So I'm.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Totally, sure.
But you've always been in our interaction just somebody that I've really enjoyed talking to, and again I've always, I think one of the reasons I've enjoyed it is because I've find your passion very I find your passion for what you do to be very contagious. I mean, I know like we ended up doing a lot of stuff in the studio that I never would have thought of, but you were like, this would sound great, go in there and try to do it like that. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like that does fucking that sounds really good. So I wanted to start. So you're a multi-instrumentalist. Like I know that you play piano, you play bass, you play trumpet, you play drums, but you drums primarily, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. If I would say drums and trumpet, because I started playing trumpet when I was 10 years old. I have an aunt that's a professional musician. I think she retired, but both my aunt and uncle that are married to each other play French horn in the Oklahoma City Philharmonic. And she bought me my first trumpet and kind of like got me into doing music. So yeah, drums and trumpet. Like I toured the most and like played in the most bands playing drums, but those are my two main instruments.
So like when was it? Because I was thinking, I was like, this isn't anything that I don't think I've ever asked him like in our face to face or like in our history, but your aunt got you the trumpet when you're 10, but when did you find, like, when did you realize? Because for someone like you, I would imagine, again, you're an audio engineer. You spend your time, mixing, mastering. You've recorded a bunch of records. I was looking up some of the credits, and Empire actually spelled your name with 2 T's when I was looking at the credits.
That's a big pet peeve of mine.
I'm sure it was a pet peeve for me. I was like, that's not how you spell his name.
Yeah.
And I still remember the story about how that happened, because you're Matthew with 1 T, because like, didn't your dad just sign it like in a rush and like forgot to put?
Yeah, that's the story my parents have told me. I don't know if I buy it anymore. Like I used to buy it when I was a young kid, but they were like, yeah, we were originally going to name you Jonathan David. And we filled out the Social Security paperwork and everything, and birth certificate and all that, and gave it back to the hospital. And then they just like, my dad had an epiphany, and he was like, I want to name him Matthew Scott. And so he called the hospital, and apparently one of the like nurses or clerical people was having a bad day and was really rude to him. And so she was like, if you don't get here in the next 45 minutes, I'm shipping off your paperwork, which that's the part of the story that I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if that's a real thing that happened, but yeah. So he apparently like ran over to the hospital and was like filling out the paperwork really fast and just forgot to put the extra T in my name. And so it's on my birth certificate. It's on all my IDs.
Yeah, it's like not like I'm Matt with 1 T, like hipster thing. It's like,
yeah, no, I'm not being a hipster. That's actually how my name is spelled.
But yeah, and I remember, like, it's crazy, but I like vividly remember you telling me that story. I mean, you're one person that I could be like, I've spent so much time in your basement.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember tracking, and we were playing, what was it? Was it NBA Street nonstop? And then there was
on PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah, that's how long ago it was. PlayStation 2. And then you had that game. I can never remember the name, but I think it was a Japanese game, but you start off with like a little like marble, and then you're just like rolling Katamari.
Katamari Damacy. I love that game.
Yeah. So that's the only time I ever played it. It was so addicting. It was just like, I'm making a giant ball. I'm just going to push and roll. And, but like, so since I've known you, you are someone who's been, I've known you as like the person who's immersed in what they do, and you were always like, have you heard this band, and check this out, let me play this for you guys, or I think your guitar tone would sound good if it sounded like this. So like when did you first be like, you know what, like I love music? Like is there a moment that you remember, or like a time in your life where, because I would imagine like you'd have to be drawn pretty hard to it to be like, that's what I'm doing for the, that's what I'm going to dedicate the majority of my life to.
You just asked me that question, and I just had this like flashback that I haven't had in years. Like you're bringing stuff back for me. So I remember the first time. So my dad was a really big into rock and roll and like heavy rock. So he had a whole vinyl collection. And some of his favorite bands were like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, ZZ Top, Deep Purple. Like he had all those records. I think I must have been like 6 or 7. And I remember, I'm sure every person did this when they were a kid, but I used to take all the couch pillows and put them on the floor and like dive into them. I would like do flips. And I remember putting a Deep Purple record on, and Smoke on the Water was playing, and I was like doing flips into pillows like in my living room. And I remember just getting like so jacked. Like I was like so excited because the music was like making me feel super energetic. And I feel like that may have actually been like the moment. I'm sure there are lots of moments. I mean, like there was just music going on in my house all the time. My mom used to listen to folk records constantly, like the Allman Brothers and Joni Mitchell and stuff like that. So there was just constantly music being played in our house. And it just like, I don't know, it kind of like infected me in a way. And I just remember hearing it and being like, oh my God, like I love that. I love the feeling that it gives me, even as a really, really young kid. And that's something that's just kind of stuck with me. I still get that when I hear a record for the first time, that I just like something like snaps, and I'm like, oh, like it's usually like 5 seconds into the first song on a record. And I'm like, I love this record immediately. And then I listen to it almost nonstop, kind of like in a like a super focused way. And I just get super attached to it. I don't know. It's something a little like esoteric and immaterial, but I feel drawn to music and tones in general, because I'm not a big lyrics person. I'm like a tone person. It's like if you get the right frequencies and the right tones of instruments in the right combination, and it hits a chord, and it's just like really true, and it kind of like hits you in your chest. That's the thing that I love that. I absolutely love that.
Well, and I will say too, I think one of the things that I've always admired about you is, especially, listening to music with you, but then again, recording music with you, is that I feel like, I hope this is the right way to say it, but I feel like you have almost like a dissective mind, like where you said, like, you listen to it over and over and over again. But, I think why some people may listen to it over and over and over again, because, they have like some, like you said, like the lyrics, they have like some connection, or it moves them in a certain way. I imagine when you're listening to it, you're like, okay, like, what did they do to those drums? And, like I wonder what kind of mic they were using on this amp to get that tone. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like and I think that's one of the reasons I've always liked your recordings, because that detail is there, where it's like, oh, this would sound good if we tried this. Or, I remember doing the Rising Tide record. You're like, well, what if we, what do you want your guitar tone to sound like? You know what I mean? Because we came in and we were just like, I don't know, man, we just plug in and let's just go. You know what I mean? And it was all like power chords. And so to really like have somebody there that was like, no, like, let's stop and think about it. Like, what do you want it to sound like? And then let's figure out then how do we make it sound like that? You know what I mean? So I think that's I don't think a lot of people's brains operate like that. I think they're more, yeah, man, those lyrics just really spoke to me, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like I felt like Matthew McConaughey, just all right, just right here, So, and it's funny that you say that too, because like, and it's definitely not anywhere as like deep as Deep Purple, but anytime Blink-182 Damn It comes on, it like snaps me back to working at Papa Romano's in Plymouth, Michigan. It was when I was like 13, and I can smell, like, if I'm like, if I tell like Spotify to play it or something like that, I don't get it. But if I'm driving in the car and like comes on the radio or comes on a playlist and like kind of hits me by surprise, like I can smell the dishwashing solution. I can smell like the it's just, I don't think there's anything that can snap you back into a memory in that kind of way. Like it's crazy that you can hear a song and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm fucking 13 again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And actually make you feel those feelings. Like that's the thing, is it's like you actually like get kind of transported back into this weird kind of headspace that also gives you like a body feel as well. You're like, oh my God, I actually feel like I'm in this space again. I'm the same way. It's like smells and things and activities that you do, they remind me of things, but music is like the one thing that kind of like actually like transports me back into a time. That's like, I don't know, it's kind of cheesy to say, but it feels like time travel in a way. That
I agree. I was just gonna say, I think it's like the closest thing to like a time machine that we have. It's just like, I don't know, like I watched a lot of like old VHS tapes that, you know, my parents had of us as kids and stuff like that. When I watch them, I'm like, oh, like that's cool. Like I was a cute kid, but it's never like, boom, I'm back in that moment. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I can remember that. Where, you know, if I hear, my mom growing up was all about, it was back when 99.5 in Metro Detroit was young country, and it was like Garth Brooks and Clint Black. And then my dad was, he was an 80s kid. So it was like Journey, and he likes like a lot of the spacier stuff. And I think that's really why, kind of looking back at it now, you know, I've always written, when I, you know, was writing a lot of music, the majority of them were like cheesy love songs. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense now. Like, you know, if you listen to a Garth Brooks record, you know what I mean? It's, most of it's just like, I love you, baby. Like putting these boots on one last time. You know what I mean? So, which, by the way, I don't know if you follow his social media, but do it. If you don't, follow Garth Brooks.
I think I saw it. He was in the news recently, but I haven't followed it. I will do that.
He's so rich that he tries to be like human. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, everybody.
He's like trying really, really hard.
Like he calls himself Mr. Yearwood because, you know, his wife's Trisha Yearwood. But I heard somebody say, if you ask Garth Brooks how much a bottle of whiskey costs, he'd say like $7,000 because he just has so much money he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely worth, like, follow his Instagram, or you could tell he didn't want to do it, and people are like, no, man, like you like, this is the world now. Like you have to.
You have to do it.
Do you ever listen to Your Mom's House podcast with Tom Segura, Christina P?
You know, I used to. I don't know why I stopped listening to it. It's kind of crazy. Ever since the coronavirus happened, I have a really long commute to my day job. It's like I live just outside of Detroit in Ferndale, Michigan, but I commute all the way. For people that know the geography of Michigan, I commute to Dexter, Michigan, which is west of Ann Arbor. So it's like it's like over an hour each way. And so I would just listen to podcasts the whole time. And ever since coronavirus happened, I'm not in my car, so I don't really listen to podcasts anymore. I just listen to music the whole time. But yeah, I used to, sorry, I didn't like, that's kind of a tangent, but yeah, no, I used to listen to Your Mom's House, but I haven't really recently.
Well, so I'm actually, it takes me now, I've worked from home for the last 3 years. And so I was kind of already like ready, you know, it wasn't much of a transition when COVID happened, but you know, I've gotten used to like, I listen to, either I watch them on YouTube if I'm like working on something that doesn't require me to like not have it on. But if I'm in my car, it'll take me like 4 days to, you know, finish an episode, because I listen to it in like 15, 20 minute chunks if I like run to get food or something like that. But the reason I was asking is they started a campaign basically suggesting that Garth Brooks is a serial killer and like asking where all the bodies are. And if you know anything about their show, they have some diehard fans. So like anytime he posts anything, it's like, where are the bodies, Garth? And there's a petition for like the FBI to investigate him. And it's fucking crazy. It's insane. Yeah. But sorry, that was just, I got off on a little tangent. But so, when did you get into playing? Like, how old were you when you started playing drums?
I was 17. And the impetus for playing drums was I don't know if you remember this. This is a story about how we met. I like when you invited me on the podcast and we were kind of catching up, I was like, trying to figure out where we met for the first time. I don't know if you remember this. So when I was in high school, the first band that I put together was called Steal the Sky, which is a terrible name.
But
We got it. That's a Yanni album. It was a tour that he did, and then he like released a live album of it, and that's where we got the name from. Which we used to get. Oh man, this was like before social media days, but we had a GeoCities website. And we had a comments section, and people used to just roast us in that comment section. There was one guy that like almost every week would just write "steal the fries." And I'm just like, come on, man. I'm sick of getting called "steal the fries." Stop.
Well, and when you're that age and like you're trying to build something, it stings. You're like,
yeah.
Oh. And this was all before the Yanni lawsuit, right? That's what eventually ended that. Before, you're still paying Yanni, right?
Yeah. But so we started that band, and originally I was like, I started playing guitar when I was 14. And I really wanted to play guitar in a band. So I met some kids in high school that were also musicians. And we were like, yeah, let's get together and jam, and we'll try to put something together. And I've been like we said, I've been doing music since I was 10 years old. I take it very seriously. Like I was the kid. I went to band camps every summer, studied music theory from a very young age, played in school symphony jazz band, like went to extracurricular training and stuff like that. So I took music very seriously from a very young age. So we were trying to put a band together. And in my opinion, drummer is probably the most important part of the band. I mean, if you can't find someone that's going to lay down a rhythm and keep it steady, you're in bad shape. And that's also been my experience working with bands from the start all the way till now. I've been doing this like almost 20 years, which is insane to say. But doing band production, if a band comes in and their drummer can't lay it down, it's rough. Like you're going to have a rough time putting together something that sounds really good. So we couldn't find a drummer, and I got frustrated. We like auditioned a bunch of people, and like we're talking to people, and we even did like the Craigslist thing for a while. I don't even know if Craigslist existed back then. This must have been like 1998, I think. But I don't know, online forums or something like that. We tried to find people, just couldn't find anyone that could play drums at all. So I was like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna go on musiciansfriend.com. I bought like a Pacific drum set. Like it was just a cheap thing. It's actually still I toured on that drum set, and I still play it. I've gotten compliments on how good it sounds too, which is kind of insane because it was such a cheap drum set. But so that's how I started playing drums. And it took me a really long time to actually like figure out how to coordinate my limbs. But once it clicked, I was like hooked on it. I loved playing drums. It's like very cathartic to just beat the shit out of drums and cymbals, like when you kind of have some pent up energy. But so the thing that I was saying about how we met. So when I was playing in that band Steal the Sky, we used to get shows. This is very inside baseball for people that are from the Detroit area, especially in the Detroit hall scene, like around the year 2000. Do you remember Mr. Muggs in Ypsilanti?
Ipsy. Yeah. It was like smelled like piss and looked like shit. Oh my God.
That was the worst venue ever. That was one of the worst venues ever.
I've often wondered if that place is still open or like what it is now.
No. It closed years ago. It was right off Michigan Avenue, right? It's like
wasn't the guy's name Steve, if I remember correctly? Yeah, I think his name was Steve, and he walked around with like the landscaping hat. Like he was the only dude I ever met who owned a music venue who like fucking hated music. He's like, I don't want to hear any of this.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. Okay, so there was a band. What was the hardcore metal band that had the female vocalist? Her name was Candace. They were on Trustkill Records. I'm blanking on what their name was right now.
The only I don't think that this is a band. The only band that I remember other than Edison Clio that we ran with that had a female singer was Hope for August. And I remember their second record got like heavier, but I don't think I would.
No, this was a very heavy metal. I'm blanking on what their name is right now. If it comes to me, it's probably going to be 20 minutes from now, and I'm going to I remember the name of the band. Yeah. But so Steal the Sky played a show there with Sandbox Heroes. So that was the first time we met. I think it probably was the year 2002. So we met 18 years ago. And I remember because I very specifically remember it because there were 3 guitars in the band, right?
It must have been 2004 because I graduated. Yeah, because I graduated high school 2004, and then the band I was in high school was pretty much done, and that's when the guys in the Rising Tide were like, "Well, like, hey man, we like you. Like, you shouldn't like not be doing anything." And so, like, you want to come?
Okay, wait. So were you not? So I'm wondering, you were in the Sandbox Heroes, right?
I was, and then so I joined into Sandbox Heroes, and that's when I came in as a third guitar player, and then the bass player left. And so that's how I went from playing guitar to playing bass. And then I don't know if you remember Justin Baker, he recorded like he was the drummer, he left, and then that's when Jay came in. And then they ended up bringing in Jordan to play piano.
I could have sworn you were at that show. Maybe I might be having a false memory.
No, it could be because I was also 2002. I was in Mercury Shoes and we played there a lot.
Oh no, it was okay. It was Mercury Shoes. I think Sandbox Heroes did play that show.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I think Mercury Shoes was there as well. It was just
talk about stupid band names. You think Steal the Sky was a stupid band?
Dude, I don't know.
We're Mercury Shoes. And we named it that because we read a story about some lady who killed her husband by breaking an old thermometer and dumping it in his shoes, the mercury, and it soaked up to his feet and killed him.
Oh,
so we're like, that's so badass. We're Mercury Shoes. That's the dumbest band name.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that have, if anyone's listening to this, when they started their first bands, they had the dumbest. No one's ever come up with a good first band name when you're in high school.
It got better because we were originally called Caution Precaution, like the wet floor signs, like in English and Spanish. So we're like, that's pretty sweet. And then ended up changing it. But it got better. At least it was a progression.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you reminded me of that because I'm like I was positive that we played a show together at Mr. Muggs.
Oh yeah, we played Mr. Muggs had to all the time.
Shoes. Yeah,
because that Steve guy was like, I hate you, but you can play here. That's he looked like anti Santa Claus. He just had that big white beard and just looked like he hated everyone.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man. It's so God. I mean, 2002. I was like, I'm 35 now. So, it's like, it feels like so long ago. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that makes me feel like an old man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But so you excuse me. Sorry. I got a little something stuck in my throat. So you learn how to play drums, right? You get hooked in that. Like, where do you go from? Because I'm guessing that you weren't like, I figured out how to play drums. Like, now I'm gonna start touring all the time and open my own recording studio. Like kind of walk me through how that grew. Because to me, I think that's I like seeing people that I respect and have seen that have worked to create something for themselves. I think the story about how they found it and moved into it is one of the best things about it. So kind of walk me through what happened next.
Yeah, I think the progression of where I went was mostly born out of just frustration. That was the thing, is I was trying to start a band. I originally wanted to play guitar. That was the thing that I really wanted to do. And then it kind of did drums out of necessity, but then fell in love with it. And then the next step was okay, hey, we wrote 3 songs, I think, and we really liked them. And we were like, okay, we really want to get a recording. And I'm sure you've experienced this, but it's you got a group of 5 people together. You're trying to work on something. Bands in particular have this really weird social dynamic or there's a psychology to it that seems like a school project, like a middle school project. The level of maturity of collaboration and in personal investment into it, just very rarely, at least in my experience, it never feels mature. It always feels like everyone wants to do things and progress, but no one wants to invest their time into doing the legwork of promotion. No one wants to put their own money into it. So that situation kind of happened with me, where it was okay, we want to go record. we got a quote from some random studio that was in Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is like a suburb that is not known for having recording studios.
Right.
Although ICP, their recording studio is in Farmington Hills, which is really kind of crazy.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah. I am not down to clown everyone.
I don't talk shit, man. They'll get you. That's it's not for me, but I respect it. I'm not trying to get caught anywhere.
Are you worried about the ICP fan base that you have?
Oh yeah, they're out there right now shaking up Fagos, getting real pissed. No, my 8th grade history teacher, his brother was the bass player for them when they played live.
No way.
Yeah, I was like,
Crazy.
it's not my thing, but that's literally the dopest shit I've ever heard. Like, that is so cool. Because I just want to be like a fly on the wall in one of those like rehearsals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
to this day, I don't think for the rest of my life, I don't think ICP will ever live this down in my view. But my wife and I, every once in a while, will just look at each other just out of nowhere and be like, magnets, how do they work? That'll be a thing for the rest of my life. So thank you, ICP, for giving me that enjoyment.
I like accidentally finding a juggalo. Like, yeah. I like because it does, like in Tennessee, it doesn't happen as much as it did in Michigan, but every once in a while, like you'll be driving somewhere and you'll see like the Hatchet Man sticker and you're like, oh shit, juggalo. Or like somebody will have like the necklace or the t-shirt on. Cause you know, back home, I mean, I knew kids who like any chance they got, I mean, shit, in 8th grade, I had no idea who they were. I just knew that they were, it must've been like 6th or 7th grade. I had no idea who they were. I just knew that I had gotten to a friend group and I thought they were much cooler than me and they really liked them. And they were like, we're going as Insane Clown Posse. So there's pictures of me like in the face makeup and I used peroxide to make my, I think I got Violent J because I was a fat kid. They're like, not calling Violent J fat. If you're listening, you're a beautiful man. Again, I don't want you to catch me in the street. not talking any shit at all. Yeah. But, so, let me ask you this too. When you got that quote, because how old were you at this point? You're like 17, 18. You're like, we're going to record a record
around there. Yeah.
When you got the quote, was it like astronomical?
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the studio, like I remember they didn't have the rates publicly posted, but I kind of feel like we wanted to go in and record 3 songs and it was insane. It was like $2,000 for
8 songs is going to take, or 3 songs that'll take 14 days. And
no, it wasn't even like they were just like, yeah, well, just like it was like a day and a half maybe is what they wanted to. And it wasn't like a known studio. It was like one of the, I call them pop-up studios because a lot of people, they'll just like find a small space like in some like town area where they maybe can get into a basement or like a lofted space and they'll try to open up a studio and they'll try to do the, oh man, I can't remember what the producer's name is. The guy that what was the girl that did Friday, that like one hit wonder.
Oh, Rebecca Black.
Rebecca Black. Yeah. So the guy that produced it,
R.I.P. She's still alive. No. She okay. Yeah, never mind. No R.I.P. She's still alive. My bad. Rebecca Black.
Yeah, of course she's still alive.
just check. Haven't heard anything from her.
But the guy that produced it, like, he's kind of a shark. He like does artist development where he'll try to find someone that like recorded a YouTube video and then he, produces some songs for them, charges them a ton of money because they usually have wealthy parents and the parents want to pay for them to become the next Taylor Swift.
Right.
So produces the song, charges a ton of money. A lot of those studios pop up all over the place. They go away as quick as they come up because, that it's to break into the music industry in that way. It's really, really difficult. You have to do something really special to do it or just already have the connections. But yeah, we just got this astronomical quote. And I think they just knew that we were young kids because we went in person and they were trying to take advantage. But yeah, so the quote was astronomical. And that was how I got into recording it was like, yeah, we want to pay. They want to charge us $2,000. If I'm gonna, the immediate thought that I had was, if I'm gonna spend $2,000 to record 3 songs, I'm just going to go to Guitar Center and I'm going to buy an 8-track is what I got, a Fostex 8-track, a little digital 8-track recorder, couple microphones, and I'll just do it myself. I think that's the thing that, like, when I say it's like born out of frustration, I have this kind of like mode that I get into when it's like I want to get something done and I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to rely on other people to like help me make it happen. I don't know, that might be a really bad quality in some respects. It might make me not like, very cooperative, because I'm just like I'm frustrated. I just want.
You're not the guy you want to get on the group project with, because you're
like, well,
I don't trust you to do it the right way, so I'm just going to do everything.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm like a super control freak. Maybe I've gotten out of it. I feel like I've gotten out of it. I might be a control freak.
I'll have your wife on. She'll let me know. She can come on next week. She'll tell me.
No, please don't do that. I'm kidding. I love my wife, Tiffany. I love you.
Yeah, I've definitely lucked out. I don't think I'm an easy person to deal with, so I'm definitely glad I got somebody who can tolerate me. That's like all that's all I ever asked for. I just wanted someone to like tolerate, and not only does she tolerate, she loves me. So
yeah,
crazy. But so you bought everything so let me ask you, when you first started, like, because I recently got a copy of the first Mercury Shoes CD that we did. Mm-hmm. I did a podcast called American Whiner with this guy Alex who is out of Michigan, and he was like going to all those shows when he was 13, 14, and he's got a chest of just CDs that he's got, and he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I still have that record. And I was like, dude, if you have that, like, I have no idea what's on it. I don't remember like what songs there were. So he sent me a digital copy, like just found it like in a random case. And I started listening to it. And just like you said, like the flashback, it took me back to, we were in our drummer's basement. We had like 3 mics and we were running on Cool Edit Pro before it came Adobe. And I don't even remember how we were running the mics into the computer. Cause like, I'm thinking like back then, like we would have had to have a mixer maybe to do the drums. But I remember we had one mic for the bass drum and then like 2 overhead mics. So like, It's just like kick drum and then a little bit of snare and then just like from the cymbals on the whole thing. Yeah. But I was just like, oh shit, like I heard it and I was like, I remember, I had no recollection of doing it. And then I was like, oh my God, I remember all of it, like just from listening to it.
Yep.
So like, were you running that kind of thing? Was it like, Cool Edit, or you had the 4-track, but like, I was wondering, I remember we finished that and I was so proud of it. I was like, this is so good. And then I listened to it recently and I was like, this sounds like it was recorded inside a trash can. So I mean, like, did you have that feeling, and like, have you gone back and revisited anytime recently?
Oh yeah, no, I like, my old recordings are very difficult for me to listen to, because it's just like, I just want to get my hands on them and remix them so that they sound like bigger. But yeah, no, I remember at the time. So for anyone that gets into like audio engineering, like the stereo field is really amazing. So when you start recording something for the first time, and you have a really rudimentary setup, a lot of times you're not familiar with like what panning is. And so you're recording stuff and you're listening to it all in mono, or maybe you're even listening to it on really crappy speakers and you're not getting like a good stereo image. And I remember the very first time that we were like, so the little recorder that I had, it was just a little digital recorder. I didn't do computer audio for a really long time. I was like stubbornly avoiding it for some reason.
You think it was like overwhelming? Because I've felt that a lot, where I'm like, okay, I figured this out. Like, I've got, like, before the pandemic hit, like if I was doing the podcast, like you had to come to my house because I could run in the mixer, run into the computer. I tried to like set it up on Skype and I was like, that's too much work. Like, I know how to do this, so I'm going to do it like this. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, well, shit, if I want to keep doing this, like I got to figure out how to do it. And it was daunting. So, I mean, do you think it was just like, hey, I've mastered what I'm using now and maybe that's what's holding off? Or, I mean, what do you think it was there?
Yeah, no, I think it was kind of born out of necessity of the situation that I was in. So I was recording my own stuff, and very quickly after I recorded the very like first couple songs that the Steal the Sky band wanted to do, I immediately was like, oh, I just spent all this money. I have all this equipment. I have an opportunity. Like, I don't know if I have just like a business ethic that was like driving me. It was like, I'm going to let all the other people that I know that play music, that I have the ability to record them. And, they can pay me a couple bucks. Like, I'll save them money because they're going to go get their crazy $2,000 quote, but they can just come into my basement and we can do something, and, hopefully they'll be happy with it. But the reason I stuck with it is like, I've always had this attitude. I still have it to this day. When I'm running sessions, I don't want anything to stop. That's my fault, at least. Like if musicians want to stop, they want to take a break, they're uncomfortable, I'm totally cool with that. If their equipment breaks and we need to fix it, I'm totally cool with that. I never want myself to be the cause that we're stopping a session. And I kind of had that view right from the beginning. So when I had my little 8-track recorder and my microphones, and I had other people in that were paying me, I felt like that, they're paying me, their money is valuable, their time is valuable. I want to like give them what they're paying for. We have an agreement about what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. And it's going to be a very like, in the most professional way that I can, even though it's out of a basement on kind of crappy equipment. But once I get something that's stable, I typically don't deviate from it at all. And now that I'm on computer audio, like I use Logic to record. It's really the only thing I work in. Even when I get Pro Tools sessions from other producers, I bring them into Logic to work with them because that's what I'm comfortable with. But I was using a computer from 2009 with like the version of Logic that I had with all the plugins and the gear that I had, that had like all of my outboard gear, interface with firmware and stuff. Everything was super stable. I never had crashes. I never lost work randomly.
Mm-hmm.
I never, glitches or anything like that. It never happened. Or if it did happen, it only happened once or twice in maybe 8 years or something like that. I just recently updated my system. I got like a new iMac, and I got some new outboard gear and an interface and stuff like that. And I spent 2 months not working with anybody at all, but just getting everything working and recording myself and making sure that everything's stable. And I can, take 16 tracks of audio recording simultaneously and it not drop out on me. So that's the big thing of why I never switched, going to computer audio for such a long time.
Well, and that's the crazy thing too, because I don't think that people, most people that aren't in like audio engineering or doing any kind of like video edit, like you think of like your laptop, like, oh, like, hey, I popped open my laptop and I, went to Netflix and I was sitting there. But like, if you're, trying to run a recording interface and then you're running, like you said, like 16 audio tracks in, and that computer has to do a lot of work. And so, it's, that's why I was always glad I had you as a friend, because it was too much for me. I was like, I don't know how to I don't know how to add RAM to my Mac. Like, I'm just gonna go to Matt. Like Matt knows what he's doing. So, and that was the other thing too, is that like when you were kind of talking about like that professionality or professionalism. Professionality isn't a word. That's
that works.
Thank you.
That's a good word.
Professionalism. I remember doing the Rising Tide record with you, and then when it came time to do the Robots record, I was talking about this with Stephanie too. But there was this place called Spiral Staircase, and I remember the guy's name was Kevin. And he was like, yeah, come on, we'll record it. I've recorded these guys. It sounds really great. And we went, and it sounded like, again, like dick slapping a trash can. It sounded awful. Mm-hmm. And so I was, and we spent money on that guy. And I was like, dude, why don't we just go to Matt? Like, let's go to Matt. Like, I know that he does good work, and that like that first record, I really enjoy listening to it now. Because, when we were talking, it kind of had me going back. Like, my wife was like, are you feeling like nostalgic or something? Because she met me like after Robots had been done for probably like a year and a half or 2 years. So like, she'd never been to a show. Like, she didn't know any, any of, like she knew I played music, but I don't, she never got a chance to like see it. You know what I mean? She was like, "Are you feeling like nostalgic or like what's going on?" I was like, "No, I was talking to Matt and we were, talking about the old records and everything." And so I was just going through and playing them. And like, it's funny just because I was talking to Joey too. He was on, and if you put Missing Pieces in and you go to, oh my God, what's the name of the song? What's the actual name of the song? Do What You Need is the name of the song.
Uh-huh.
You put it in a CD player like an old car. It pulls. I don't know if you remember this, but we called it Doc Mambo because we didn't have a name for it.
Oh yeah. No, I actually think I have a folder that's called. I was looking through your stuff because I was sending you some audio files. But yeah, that's what I have. That's what it's named.
Yeah, that's what it shows up as when you put it in like an old car, like a.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like nobody listens to CDs anymore. It's all like digital. Yeah. But he was like, "Yeah, I popped it in. It was like Doc Mambo." So like I listened to it and like the quality of the recording is consistent like all the way through. I think the one thing that I think now is like we just feels like that first record we didn't really have our sound nailed down, so it kind of fluctuated as far as like song to song. But like the quality of the record was really good, and especially being at that age, because like that's, I think when you're that young, like you just want. When you're that young and you're trying to play music and you're trying to be like, no, like I'm good. This is what I want to do. Like you need something that sounds good, that kind of solidifies that like you're at a certain level. And I remember feeling that very much like recording with you, is that when we left, like we had something. It was like, this is like, we are legitimate because we have a good recording. You know what I mean? And I think it's crazy now. Cause I like, let me ask you this. Do you think like that's something, that's something that like kids playing music now are going to have to worry about? Cause like, like you can do everything from home now, you know what I mean? Like you got like SoundCloud pages and all that stuff. Like, I guess like, I feel like you would still be doing, if you were, born 10, 15 years later, I feel like you would still be doing what you're doing. But I like, bands and stuff now, like you can record an album on your iPhone if you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like it may not sound as good as, so I mean, like, do you think that makes things a little bit, does it make the playing field a little bit different now compared to, when we were younger?
Oh yeah, totally. I think like the way I work has completely shifted over the years. Cause it's so easy. Like right now, the way audio production kind of works is it's a little, I don't know what the right way to put this is. But it's so easy when you're doing a rock record at home to do like time editing and sample replacement and, auto tune and stuff like that. It's like, so anyone at home, I mean, with a pretty minimal amount of effort, because there are resources on YouTube and online forums and, I mean, the amount of resources to teach you how to record, I mean, it still takes a lot of effort, but people can do a really good job from home. And so in order to do something professional, you kind of have to like take yourself a step above that. For rock records, I get records from people from time to time that are completely recorded at home from like an amateur engineer, and it's kind of a mess, and it's really hard to actually get it to sound the way that they had envisioned like in their minds when they're doing it, because there are things that take into consideration like phase and standing waves in rooms and stuff. Like there's actually like a real audio engineering portion to it that a lot of people don't fully understand, and it kind of takes your recording to the next level when you do. But yeah, I mean, like when you're like, I kind of feel like the technology that exists now, it makes professional recording studios kind of superfluous. I mean, like, especially when you have $1 million facility and they're charging you, $1,000 a day to go record. And you can get pretty close, like in your basement. Like the one example that I use a lot from like a home recording that's just like unbelievably good. Do you listen to Mac DeMarco at all?
No.
Oh my God, listen to his first record, because he just did it in his apartment in Brooklyn, on an 8-track recorder that he actually recorded it to cassette tape.
Sweet.
And if you look at video, or like he took videos of him while he was recording it, it's just like the crappiest setup. Like you wouldn't ever think that it would sound amazing. He's recording on like a $200 Audio Technica mic, which it's not an expensive mic. I think it might even be just like a USB like podcasting mic, and then just like another normal vocal mic that you could buy anywhere. And it sounds amazing. Like that sounds amazing. It's a really good record. So the fact that he could do that, you don't have to go into $1 million facility to get an amazing sounding record,
Yeah. And I definitely agree. It's like, especially if you're doing a rock record, and I think especially with hip hop as well, like, you can make beats at home just like so easy now. And then, like you said, like, you can go out and get like a Blue Yeti or a Snowball USB mic and put a pop shield in front of it. And then, you're just spitting bars in your bedroom, and then like, boom, like SoundCloud is like your distributor now, or, whoever you're putting it out on. And it's just like, I don't know, like I just remember that feeling of like again, being in that basement with Cool Edit Pro and being like, yes, you know what I mean? And I remember it was so, like, I just feel like it would be completely different, like being that age now, and just the number one, the advancements in what's available, you know what I mean? Like I don't even think there was USB mics like there is, you know what I mean? Like just plug it into your computer, say whatever you want. It just reads it, knows what to do. And like I've got a keyboard over there from the 80s that like I can plug into the computer as a MIDI controller, so I can play like strings and all, like we didn't have that when we were doing that first record in high school. So it's just, it makes me feel good that it's made those leaps and bounds, and it feels like right now it's almost like more accessible. And because it's more accessible, we're seeing, I think, a new group of artists come up. But I also think that not only are we seeing like a new group of artists, but then we're seeing people who aren't afraid to take risks. Like, do you listen to Dermot Kennedy at all?
No, I don't.
Check him out. He's from Dublin. He's an Irish guy, and he started off doing a lot of folk like music. And he met from what I understand, I mean, I don't work for the guy and we're not friends, so this is definitely just my interpretation or my like secondhand knowledge. But he met a hip hop producer that was like, dude, like I want to make hip hop beats for your songs, I love his records. They're so good. But like, to be in this era where we're at now, where you could be like, yeah, I've been writing, like old timey folk songs, like, sure, let's try with a hip hop beat. You know what I mean? Or like, like Judah and the Lion, stuff like that. Like people are just, willing to, I mean, I've never heard like a hip hop group with like an emo hip hop group with a mandolin or a banjo before, you know what I mean? It's I feel like it's kind of opening, it's allowing people to be creative in ways that I think maybe like they would have been scared to, or like we wouldn't have heard, 10, 20 years ago, anything like that.
Yeah. I think the COVID quarantine situation has been really interesting too. Like I've been paying attention to a lot of the stuff that people are doing, like, distant collaborations where they're just sending sessions back and forth. And I do you listen to Charlie XCX at all?
Yes,
she's like a big pop.
Yeah, I can't say that I would like be able to like sing you any verses, but I'm aware of who she is.
Yeah. So she just did this thing. I just like, it blew my mind. Cause when the quarantines in California, like first got going and put into place, and everyone was, stay at home orders. She announced on social media that she was going to release a record, and she gave herself an end date. She was like, I'm going to put it out by May 14th or whatever. And she like collaborated with all these different producers, and she recorded a full album over a 6-week period, wrote the songs, recorded them in her apartment with like again, not an expensive vocal mic. Just they were using Logic. They were sending Logic sessions back and forth with producers where, they would write a beat, they would send it to her, she would record a vocal, kind of tune it, chop it up, vocode it, do a lot of cool things, send it back to the producers. They'd like put their touches on it. And then she was also like putting up clips on Instagram. She would have Instagram live sessions, and then her fans would be giving her feedback on the songs. And then she like the artist direction, like the artwork for the album was chosen by the fans, and the photography and stuff like that. And it's just, and you listen to the album and it's like really, really good. It's a pop album. It's, it's like a mainstream pop album, but it's like, it's an incredible album to do that, like concept to finish in 6 weeks, and to have it sound as good as it does. And everyone's just working out of their, working in isolation out of their apartments. It's pretty incredible. Like I would recommend anyone just listen to the record in that context and just kind of like, bask in awe of like how much I would hope people would understand like how much work that is,
Oh yeah. Well, we just had Tetranauts on, which is I'm sure you remember Eric Gaither. He was
of course.
Well, he's an electronic 3-piece now, and they, one person starts a track and splice, and then the next person opens up, kind of adds it. But we were talking about like, can you imagine like being in the postal service and like recording a track and then being like, I'm gonna like drop this in an envelope and like physically mail it to you, and then you like add what you want and then mail it back, where it's like, now it's like, oh yeah, hey man, just check your email. Like it's in a zip, it's in a zip folder. Just go ahead and add whatever you want, send it over. It's like, the other thing I was thinking too is like, can you imagine recording a band and like 100 of their fans were just in the basement while you were recording their album? You know what I mean? Like, no, try this, do that. Like, I remember just having like girlfriends there when we were younger. It was like, dude, like, stop talking to your girlfriend. You got to play your guitar part. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know a lot of studios that implement a like no significant other or friend rule during recording sessions.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I just feel like it's. I just think it's cool that like the internet and technology. Because I feel like I'm like talking about this like I'm 100 years old. Like we didn't have the internet when like we were recording those records, but we didn't have the internet like we have it now.
No,
you know what I mean?
At all.
There wasn't like gigabit speed, or you know what I mean? Like it was like, oh well, if we're gonna listen to something on iTunes, let me make sure I close all this stuff out because I want to, another thing I wanted to ask you, and I appreciate. I mean, I know we've been going for a while, and I appreciate it. And
oh no, it's cool, man. It feels like nothing.
Yeah, it's fun, kind of being able to talk about this stuff. But you played drums, and Before I Go, which I know Before I Go had a following that was well outside of Michigan, because they, you guys toured a lot and played guitar and Half the Battle, like as a fill-in and did some shows there as well. But when did you decide? Because like by the time we had started recording with you and I really got to like start my friendship with you, like you hadn't been playing out shows, doing anything like that. So like, what was it that got you being like, okay, I'm just not gonna like, I want to focus on like recording and the production side? Like, was there something about being on the road? Or, I mean, just kind of talk to me about like what that mindset was around that.
Yeah, it was a lot of things. So I mean, I kind of had family pressure to go to college and, have like a typical career path. And like I wasn't like an amazing high school student. I did pretty poorly in high school. I actually barely graduated. So I really loved music. I love it. Yeah, I still laughing about it because I remember like right before graduation, like getting my final report card, and it like showed you what level, like what rank you were out of your class. And there were like 354 students, and I was like 340 out of 354. Like I was so low, like in the very bottom percentile.
That's really funny because like since the time I never would have guessed that, like in the history of our friendship, and it's funny that you say that now, because I imagine, and I could be totally wrong, but I've talked about it before where I just didn't care. I wasn't interested in the stuff that I wanted to play music. So like, I was like, I'm not doing my homework. I'm not like, I'm not going to go home and study for this test. Like I'm going to hang out with my two best friends in a basement. We're going to write songs and like we're playing the Wired Frog and East Point. You know what I mean?
My God, East Point.
Like we got to get these songs ready.
Man. Yeah.
Like, and so I would take the test and I would do fine on the test because I like understood the material, but I didn't give a shit about doing homework. And shout out to my guidance counselor. She gave me a science credit for taking photo because we worked with chemicals. She was like, that counts. And that's the only way I graduated. She was
nice.
like, but it is funny to hear that from you because like, you're so like, yeah, I figured this out. Like, this is like when you were talking about your vocal chain before the show, like I made sure I have my best vocal chain. Like, you know, I know how so it's funny to me to think of like Matt, who's like, I don't give a shit about this. Like, I'm just, you know what I mean?
No, I have a really weird streak in me. I don't know if it's like a problem with authority, but I like doing the things that I want to do. And I really don't like doing the things that I don't want to do. And I think I've gotten better at it. Cause I mean, I have like a normal day job and there are obviously things that I don't want to, although I'm very fortunate. I have a job that I really, really enjoy and I'm passionate about outside of doing recording work. But when I was in high school, I just like, I don't know. I didn't care. I don't know. And I was really weird. I was super honest about it too with my teachers, and it would always kind of throw them off because I remember like I was really into Incubus in high school. Like I remember hearing Science for the first time and being like, oh man, this record is amazing. And then I think Make Yourself came out after that. And I remember Make Yourself came out when I was a junior in high school. And I just like, I think I can't remember what the guitar player's name is, Mike something. But I love his guitar playing style and all the effects that he uses and stuff. And I remember going and buying like a Digitech multi-effects board after that album came out. And for weeks, I just learned that album front to back on guitar, like all the effects that he uses and like guitar swells and choruses and stuff like that. Just like meticulously figuring out how everything sounded on guitar. I didn't do anything in school for that entire 2 weeks.
I need to know how the swell works, and pardon me. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I would go in, and we'd be like handing in homework, and the teacher would see me and be like, Matt, you're not handing in your homework. And normally, like kids in high school, you'd have an excuse, right? Like, oh, I don't know, like I had a family emergency or whatever. But I'd just be like, yeah, I don't know, I was playing guitar all night. I'm sorry, I don't have my homework. And then they would like look at me and just be like, okay, I don't know what to do with that information. It's too honest.
Yeah, my mom used to get on to me all the time and be like, what are you going to do? How are you going to graduate? And I was like, don't worry, Mom, I got a plan. Like, I got it. Don't worry. And when I actually graduated, my graduation cake, or the cake at my graduation, said he had a plan written on it. I was like, mission accomplished. I'm done. And now I'm going to do a half a semester of community college and not go back. So,
yeah, so I think I auditioned for it before I go, and I got into it, and I was touring with them. I think the thing that got me out of it was I did not like touring. It just wasn't for me. It was very exhausting. It felt like the moments when we would play shows, I was really fortunate too that Before I Go had a following outside of the state, because we would get on really good shows all the time. I remember the very first show I played with Before I Go was with Edison Clio and the Chiodos Bros. That's what they used to be called, but now they were Chiodos. And Chiodos it was in Flint at the Flint local, and Chiodos, that was their home base. So they would pack that venue. And I remember we were like second support right before Chiodos. That was my first show. Like going from playing in a crappy high school band to no one whenever we like at stupid hours of the night, like going on at midnight on like a Thursday in East Point, Michigan. Like no one's gonna go to that.
Wired Frog, woo!
Yeah, going to that. Like so, then I play in a packed house one night, and then I remember like the next show that we played was opening up for Something Corporate in Toledo, and it was like, I mean, that was to like 1,500 people. Like it was just kind of like insane to go from nothing to like playing really good shows. But then we would go on the road, and playing the shows was amazing. And I loved talking with fans and, having a really good set and watching people enjoy themselves. But then like a 17-hour car ride, I don't know, man. I just like in a smelly van.
And that's the thing too. Like like, I don't think when people think of like a touring band, I think they've seen so many like all the old like Fall Out Boy music videos where it's just like montages of like how much fun it is like in the van, and
Yeah.
like you're on tour and having a great time, and then like when you're actually in the van, it's just like 4 or 5 smelly dudes because you got your, and like doesn't matter how nice your van is, it's still a van. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I remember being on tour too and just having like it was like week 4 of the tour. This wasn't with Before I Go. It was on a separate tour, but it was like we were like 4 weeks into the tour, and a fight broke out over who was going to get the middle bench of the van so that they could like stretch their legs.
that was a sleep bench.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was the you can lay out bench. And it was just, I remember like kind of seeing that. I wasn't involved in it, but I just remember seeing that and just being like, oh man, this is like when you're at each other, like when you're in close quarters like that, you just naturally just kind of get at each other after a while. And I found that like really hard. And I couldn't really see myself doing that 9 months out of the year, because that's basically what the schedule is for a professional touring band. But I remember the moment. So I was with Before I Go. And we went and we recorded an EP called the City Skyline EP in Toronto. And it was like a short weekend. We did 5 songs. We kind of blew through it. We did it in like 3 days. And we kind of weren't getting along with each other. And then I really enjoyed the work that we did on the record. I did a lot. I got to play guitar and piano and do drums on it. And I thought the songs that we wrote were awesome. It kind of departed from what Before I Go originally had done, which is like a very standard punk sound, and we kind of started to veer into different territories. And I thought it was really cool. But then we got back, and I remember the singer and the guitar player kind of saying like, "Hey, I've been in contact with a label representative at Equal Vision, and they're interested in signing us. Like this could be real." And it became real for me in that moment. Like, oh, like now I have to make a decision about whether I'm going to be a professional touring musician for a punk band too, which is another thing. It's like the longevity of punk bands. Like, I mean, you get a few years to rise to certain heights, but then it just kind of tapers off for most. I mean, it's different for like Newfound Glory and Blink-182 and Jimmy Eat World. They have very fruitful careers, but it's like not everybody
like Coheed and
does that.
Cambria, who was like,
exactly.
Vision. But like, what other bands from Equal Vision right now, other than Coheed and Cambria, are still doing that?
Maybe like Circa Survive, like still putting records out, but that's it. Like out of all the bands that they've signed over the years, it's just like that just doesn't happen that often. So it's like, yeah, maybe you get a good run for 3 to 4 years, and then what do you do? So that was kind of like a 2-pronged thing for me. It's like, okay, I think maybe I should go back to school at this point, but then also I'm going to take recording super seriously as well, because I want to stay working on music. And recording seems like a perfectly plausible way to like have a career, So that was kind of how that wound up happening. Was it just I got confronted with the notion in a very real way, and I had to make a decision. At that point, I just started going back to school full time.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I can relate because with Robot, it wasn't anything like where we had like an offer or anything like that, but I think at the time it was arguments and stuff like that, but I mean, I still love those guys. We have a group chat going. We still talk, a lot of us have a lot of different opinions on a lot of different things, but I think when you're in a relationship like that, because that's the best way that I can describe it, is like if you're in a 4-person band, you've got 3 girlfriends, you know what I'm saying? Like and I think it's something that it's as close to like polygamy I think you can experience, just being like, I have responsibilities to all 3 of these people, and they all have a responsibility to me. So it's like a dynamic that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with. But I think like looking back on it now, being so much older, I was like man, like I just want like some stability, you know what I mean? I like worked at pizza places and Subway, and you know what I mean? Like I would have a job that I could quit in case it was like we could go, I could quit my job if I had a show, and then I could very easily get another job. You know what I mean? Like so I was like, man, I like want to have a house, and I want to have like, some stability, and so I think for me that was kind of when I was like, yeah, like I think that's what was going on in my head looking back at it now. And the time, I think it was very emotional, and like, you know, like was dating a girl at the time who I was like, she didn't like that I was always playing a show, like, you know, playing shows and stuff like that. And it's, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy, especially like, cause how old were you when you recorded that record in Toronto?
I was 19.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I was 19 or 20. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you know, just kind of thinking of what your perspective was, you know what I mean? 15 years later, it's like, oh, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? You can definitely point out like some underlying things that maybe weren't at the surface at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm definitely glad that you stayed in the audio engineering. Because I know like you moved to Toledo for a little while, right?
Yep.
How long were you there?
I think so. My wife was going to grad school in Toledo, which is why we were down there. But I think I was there for maybe 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
But yeah, we had this kick-ass. I'm not a huge fan of Toledo as a place to live. There wasn't really a whole lot to do. Yeah, I don't know.
Who's really that big of a fan of Ohio?
I remember the first time we went down there, we were like at a gas station, and I was just talking to somebody. I think maybe it was the attendant, and I was like, "Yeah, we just moved down here from Detroit," and the person was like, "Hey, you know what the best thing about Toledo is?" And I was like, "Oh, cool! You're gonna tell me something cool about the city?" And he was like, "It's so close to Detroit. It's, you know, you can drive like 50 minutes and you're back up there." And I'm like, shit, there's nothing to do here.
No, the zoo. The zoo is the coolest part of Toledo, hands down.
Yeah, and actually, you know what, they have like a glass museum. Like Toledo was known for manufacturing glass.
Oh.
Yeah, they have a really cool museum down there. I don't know. That's kind of a random thought about Toledo. But the one super cool thing that I absolutely missed about Toledo is we wound up getting this badass loft. It was like the entire floor of an old paint factory that had been renovated by this guy, and the landlord was super cool too. I mean, the other tenants, he renovated a bunch of units, and we had some crazy neighbors that were just like whacked out on drugs, like arguing at 3:00 in the morning, and there were cats everywhere. We had a neighbor, her name was Cat, and she had, no joke, 16 cats.
Jesus.
If you go through if anyone goes through my Instagram feed, or you know me, I take a lot of photos of my personal cats. But when I was down in Toledo, in my feed, I have pictures of all the outdoor cats that were outside of my loft. But I was able to record out of that loft, and it sounded amazing because it was all wood. It had vaulted ceilings that was just rafters. It was like 18-foot ceilings. And the main room was just like an amazing drum room. And I'm super proud of the records that I got to do while I was down in Toledo. I was definitely missed that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like, I don't know. I think that you are, like I said, I've never met anyone whose mind, and I feel like I'm like describing like your Rain Man or something, but like
don't do that.
Like, I just mean like it, like I've had friends who are like, I fucking love music, man. I love everything about it. It's like what I live for. But I haven't had a lot of relationships with where people, like I said earlier, kind of dissect it and look at it in a way. Look at it in the way that you do. And I think that's one of the things I've always like, I think that's one of the things I've always been like drawn to you by. Cause like I said, I remember, you know, we'd wrap a recording session and then it would be like, dude, have you heard this? And like put something on and be like, okay, like you're going to hear it's real faint. It's over here. And then it pans over to this side. And like, I never would have thought about it, but to have someone kind of break that down like that and to, I think it, you know, again, with perspective, like, you know, even I've sent you some of the things that I've done here. I mean, I think some of the things that you kind of taught me when we were recording are things that I've found myself doing here. Like, oh, like, let me make sure, how does this sound? And does this balance well together? Or, you know, like, I think it was that song we did, Missing Pieces, where, you know, I never thought of trumpet on it. You know what I mean? And that's like my favorite part of the whole song now. So I'm like, you know, looking, I think knowing you kind of gave me kind of like broaden my view as to like what music could be and then how I could apply that to like my own projects, which is something I'm like, just to be honest with you, I think I'm going to be grateful for, forever. Cause it's, I was very much before I met you was just like, hey, let me just like play 4 chords as fast as I can. Like I know that a Fender is a cool guitar. You know what I mean? I know I'm supposed to have a stack. I got this B52 stack. I'm supposed to have that, so like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever got a chance to like tell you that, but like, I like, those are times I look back and I'm like, man, I like appreciate that I had that relationship, that I got to experience that the way that I did. Cause I mean, like you said, we could have paid, $2,000 and gone and recorded some dude who didn't give a shit. You know what I mean? So it's cool to be like, not only did I have a great experience recording it, but then I've also like met someone who gave me a different perspective, so
yeah.
Just want you to know you're appreciated, sir. That's
Thanks, man. I super appreciate that. That's really nice of you to say. And I've always loved the music that you guys have done. I actually, there have been a couple of artists that like I just develop a really good like working and just general friendship relationship with. And it's been a really long time since I've gotten to work with you on the projects that you've done. And to be honest, like when I have relationships, like when I did with you, when I get excited to show you guys stuff and like we're like working on ideas and we're doing it like together. I think that's the thing that I like the most is I don't like foisting my ideas onto people. I want to have like a relationship where we're like bouncing ideas back off of each other and we're doing something that we both enjoy rather than me just like, oh, you need to do your guitar this way because it'll make it sound good. And they're right. Like, I don't like the way that it sounds like that. I like it to be a little bit more collaborative. But yeah, I totally miss having you guys in sessions. Like like Sandbox Heroes, Rising Tide, and then Robots in the Garden. Like you guys were kind of like, I was just working with you constantly for a couple years.
Yeah.
And it was super fun. I miss it.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's like I forget what I'm trying to remember. I had something in my head and it just like it slipped. Oh no, I'm so like yeah, I think people think, oh, like he's a producer, he's an audio engineer, and you get like images of like what you see on like in movies and stuff like that. And then where I think a lot of people would never take the time to be like, oh, I mean, that's probably a very like, if you're just recording metal bands all day, you know what I mean? And it's all just like, here's a blast beat, I'm playing as fast as I can. Like it gets repetitive and it gets boring. I would imagine it gets repetitive and gets boring very quickly. So, to be able to have those, same with like punk bands. Like if you're just recording like a punk band and it's, 4 chords fast, you know what I mean? It's like, mm-hmm. Being able to be like, hey, like, what do you hear in this song? Or like, I think for me, I think those sessions, they taught me a lot about like, hey, how do I collaborate? You know what I mean? Whether it was with you or whether it was with the guys in the band, like, what do you think? Because there were some of those songs that we brought in and they sounded one way, and then we left and they sounded like completely differently. They had 808s in them and like bass drops. Mm. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just it's cool to be able to work with somebody, and and then to see somebody like Josh Dillon, who after we did that, and I being in that studio now, he has his own place and stuff like what I mean. It's cool to like to see other people kind of be like, oh, this is something that like I could do, you know what I mean, and have that passion. One thing I did want to ask,
studio space is gorgeous, by the way. I've only seen it once, but yeah, I don't know if you're you stay in touch with Josh, right?
Yeah. Last time, I'll fill you in on some stuff when we get done here, but every time I go home, we try to go home maybe like once, twice a year, but I always like make sure I've got either a day or like a night. Like last time I went home, I got together with him. We met up at the studio, and then the next day, we took our daughter to with the family to that apple orchard, because they don't have those down here. We've got pumpkin patches down here, but we don't have any cider mills. So we took it, and then he brought his son, and met my daughter, and you know what I mean. So I talked to Joey, and I mean Joey and Gaither were just on over the last month. So we've got a group chat. Like I said, man, even though the band didn't work out, there's still, I think when you go through some of those things, whether you like it or not, like you're bonded with them in a way that like you don't bond with a lot of other people, you know?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
One thing I did want to ask you, because I know it's here in the Nashville area, we're coming up at 9, so I know it's getting a little bit late there. One thing I was thinking about when we were getting ready, this point in time very much feels like it could be like we could be on like the verge of like a revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the protests and like the calling for change. And then it got me thinking to like, you know, the 60s, right? We had like, you had Dylan and you had like the Beatles and you had like the soundtrack almost to like a revolution. The question that I wanted to ask you to kind of close stuff out is, right now with what's going on, who do you think, like looking, like let's say super volcano doesn't erupt in 40 years, right? Like looking back, who do you think musically is going to be like considered the voice of like the revolution that could be happening now? Any thoughts on that? Because it's something I was thinking about today, and I was like, oh, that would be a good question to ask Matt.
Yeah, dude, I think there are a lot. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is "Run the Jewels," for sure. I mean, if you listen to their stuff, the lyrics are incredibly powerful. I also think Jay-Z's last record was in 444. I don't know if you've listened to it. Man, it was like really, really, really good. It had an impact on me when I listened to it. I was like, this is like, it's artistic in a way that conveys a message that I don't know. It's super impactful on me. Yeah, those are the two that really come to mind. The one thing I will say, I think about this a lot. I really miss Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, it's like we need you right now.
Yeah, I feel like I need Zach De La Rocha. I need him screaming in my face. Like I just like, this is a moment where I know they, like the band when they broke up, they have, you know, business differences, I think, is the reason that they wound up breaking up in the first place. I'm so bummed. I don't know. They were going to go on tour and Run the Jewels was going to open. My wife and I had tickets for the Detroit show.
Jeez.
And it got canceled and we wound up getting it refunded. I mean, we may still go, but I was so excited for that. But I really miss Rage Against the Machine. I still listen to their records constantly. It's in a constant rotation for me. But I wish they were here right now, giving us something, because I feel like that would be awesome.
I think I read, is Zach De La Rocha going to be on the new Run the Jewels single? I think I saw some. I'll have to look for the article and see.
He probably will be. I like the new. He's in the new video for Ooh La La. Okay. I don't know if you've seen that. That song.
No, not yet.
Oh man, do you know that song Ooh La La?
No, I haven't heard it yet. I'll have to check it out.
Oh man, listen to it. It's so good. They write some of the catchiest stuff too. I mean, yeah, there's LP and Killer Mike are like, I'm blown away every time. I listen to stuff that they.
That's one thing I really respect about LP too. Is LP? He's come out and said like, I'm just trying to figure out how to be an ally, man. You know what I mean? Like he's, you know, I think it's in, you know, kind of again to like circle back to what we were talking about in the beginning is like, you know, I think that's like all you can do. It's crazy. You said we had tickets to go see Trevor Noah at the Ryman here. He was coming and COVID knocked that out and they didn't reschedule it. They just were like, here's the refund. So that was a bummer. For me, the thing that was really interesting to me is I can't think right now of a lot like any. I haven't been able to like really think of any like rock bands that, you know, for me it's all hip hop right now. It's like Kendrick Lamar, or I think like This Is America from Childish Gambino.
Yeah,
like I think that's one of those ones that 40 years from now people are going to be like, hey, like you want to see what America was like at this time? Like here's the snapshot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you also see? Do you know Joyner Lucas?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, he's another one too that's putting out stuff. Like when he did the I'm Not Racist video too, that was another one that I just like. Both the This Is America and the I'm Not Racist videos, both were just like, man, people are doing something really special right now to like get their message across in an artistic way. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's crazy. Like I think the one thing that I'm worried about is it reminds me very much of like when NWA came out, You know what I mean? And that's also a little maddening to me because it's like, oh, we're still doing this. You know what I mean? Like these, like the same, like we were saying this was being said in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like there was like the same message in songs, you know? So I'm really hoping that like this time will stick, but like, it's just, I thought that was, I was thinking about today and I was like, man, like, I wonder, you know, if things do change and things are, you know, are for the better after this, like, what's the soundtrack going to be? Because it's right now, everybody's too angry for it to be like, here's the Arlo Guthrie song. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, for sure.
You know, but well, we'll wrap it up, man. I mean, like I said, I know it's late, but I just want to say I really appreciate you being on and sharing so much. And I mean, you are always more than more than welcome to come back. I mean, if you want to come back, I had a great time talking with you. And I know people can find you. It's Matt Halliday audio production on Facebook, right? So if they
It's I'll be honest, I'm terrible at social media. I don't know if you went on my page, I like barely post anything. I'm actually working quite a lot lately, but I don't know. I just don't post the things that I'm working on. I'm hopefully going to be launching a website soon. I don't know what the domain is going to be yet, but I'm also on Instagram. I think it's just Matt_Halliday.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll put it.
I post studio stuff.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. Matt has a lot of adorable pictures of his cat. I was also very proud of him around election time because he had his I voted stickers. It made me feel good to be like, this is one thing I'll say is that around voting and some of the political topics, one thing that makes me very proud to be your friend is that even 14, 15 years ago, you were saying the same thing. You know what I mean? Like you've always been like, you got to go out, you got to vote. Like you are nothing if not consistent. And that's something that like, I really respect. That's why I like Bernie so much. I was like, hey, you want to know who's been saying the same thing for like the last 60 years? Like Bernie hasn't really changed his mind on much. So, you know, consistency is something I definitely respect. So, I don't know, man. I just appreciate you being here. We'll put the Instagram handle, the Facebook in the show notes, and then if you get the website launch, just send me the link. We'll get that in there as well. If you guys are interested, Matt also does. If you're in a band, listen to this. He does mastering, all sorts of audio services. So check him out. You know, hit him up. Does great work, I can say. You know, from personal experience, and it would definitely better yourself. You know, working with them on a project. So I just want to say thank you. We're going to wrap it up, and can you hang back for a minute after we're done?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, John. It was really awesome talking to you. This flew by. I was expecting it to feel like it was, I honestly could talk to you for like a couple more hours and not feel like it would be a burden on my time or anything. It was awesome to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, it was good. It was good having you. And I feel the same way, man. Like I said, it really brought me back to like finishing those sessions and just being like, all right, well, what are you doing for the next like 2 hours? Let's just like sit and bullshit for a little bit. So, but thank you guys for checking out the episode. Really appreciate it. Matt Halliday, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks, John.
All right.